Thank you very much, and thank you for that warm welcome. There's a very good reason why I raced to get here tonight, which is I've spent a fascinating 2 hours this morning with Dan Dennett and found the conversation enormously enlightening. We don't agree on everything, but there's a very fruitful discussion, I think, to be had. And I'm delighted to meet Alister, who I've had a very, very interesting email correspondence with. So for me, I feel this evening is going to be a very, very interesting event, and I so wanted to be here to hear this conversation that I turned everything round to get here. So I think we've got a great treat ahead of us. I'll just very briefly, I probably don't need to introduce Dan Dennett in any great detail to many of you. He's written a series of remarkable books which have gained great respect in many parts of the world, including his home country, America. His latest book, I think, is a hugely important contribution to the American public culture and must be seen in that context. So I think it's very kind of, in some ways it's quite a difficult one for the English reader to find their way into the book. And I find it fascinating to hear him talking about the particular context of America. So Dan Dennett is a professor of philosophy at Tufts University. He's written a number of books: Consciousness Explained, Freedom Evolves, and he lives in North Andover, Massachusetts, and has a farm in Maine. That's what I learnt this morning, which I thought sounded really amazing. Alister is perhaps one of the most prominent Christian scientists in the UK. He has also written a number of deeply respected books. A former atheist, he became a Christian and has doctorates in both natural sciences and Christian theology. And he has carried out research on molecular biophysics at Oxford, and is currently Professor of Historical Theology at Oxford University. So the plan for this evening is that Dan will speak for about 20 minutes, Alister for about 20 minutes, and then we'll have some time for comments and questions, the part that I will chair. So I think we'll go straight over to Dan.
Thank you.
Are we supposed to move off the platform?
Thank you very much, Madeleine. Can we get to my slides? There we go. Yes. Let me say a word about the title of the book. If I told you that I wanted to study the pharmaceutical industry because it was a very important industry these days. After all, if we live through the threat of bird flu, it'll be because of wonderful things that are happening in the pharmaceutical industry. I think most people would say, yes, by all means, study it with all the intensity you can muster. It may make a few people uncomfortable, but it certainly, we should make sure we do it right. If I said in exactly the same tone of voice, and I think while we're at it, we should also study organized religions with the same intensity, because they're very important factors in the world today. A lot of people would sort of draw back in horror and say, you mustn't do that. It's just not done. It's blasphemous. It's sacrilegious. It's rude. To which I want to say, well, that may be, but we're going to have to do it, and that's the spell that I want to break. The taboo against subjecting religion to the same level of scientific scrutiny that we address all other really important phenomena to. So that's the meaning of the title. Now, the British edition has this picture of me on the cover, and I noticed that a lot of people have been sort of remarking at this sort of strange resemblance between me and one of my heroes. I really don't know what this is about. I don't know why they say it, but it's really coincidental. In fact, I've had the beard. I'd already had the beard for 10 years before I read The Selfish Gene, so it isn't deliberate in any case. But now I want to turn directly, in the little time that's available to me, to a very brief account of what's in my book. And I'm going to start. Oh my goodness, this is out of order. Well, that'll do. Here we go. There we go. What is this? What we have here is, of course, a dairy cow. And the question is, who designed it? Who designed the dairy cow? And the answer, of course, is, well, the dairy cow was designed for millions of years, you might say, by natural selection all by itself. It was a wild species. This is the aurochs, which is the ancestor of the dairy cow. And at that point, the aurochs, what was it for? It was just for itself. Aurochses were for making more aurochses. But then, when the aurochs became domesticated, it came eventually under conscious, deliberate, one might even say intelligent design. Breeders who were set on taking this beast and turning it into something for human purposes, redesigning it, optimizing it in various ways, in effect reverse engineering the cow and engineering the cow into something for human purposes. And what I want to say is that much the same thing is true of religions. Religions haven't existed on the planet forever. They are in fact a quite recent phenomenon. In fact, organized religions are more recent than the domestic cow. That they evolved from wild ancestors, and that they're still evolving, and that if we want to understand religions, we need to subject them to very careful scientific scrutiny. Religions are brilliantly designed products. It's no wonder that religions have the hold over us that they do. They've been designed and redesigned for thousands of years by human beings, and for tens of thousands of years and more by evolution, by natural selection. They have an evolutionary history, which we should try to get to the bottom of as best we can, and we can. So in other words, what I'm talking about is reverse engineering religions. Looking under the hood to see what makes them work, trying to figure out how the features that they have got the way they got. Some of them are the products of intelligent human re-engineering. Some of them are the products of essentially blind human tinkering, like early domestication. And some of them are more ancient still and really owe their existence not to any human engineering at all, but to the engineering that's done by evolution, by natural selection. With a phenomenon as remarkable as religion, but also as familiar to us as religion, it helps to get a little distance, to make the familiar strange. And so one of the things I try to do in my book is let's be Martians. Let's be Martian biologists who arrive on this planet and are rather struck by a number of phenomena. And I want to draw your attention to a few phenomena that might really fascinate a Martian biologist, just because they're surprising. Now, what on earth is this? Would anybody like to hazard a guess to what this is? Is it a whale? No, it's not a whale. Is it a tongue? No, it's not a tongue. Is it something in a petri dish? Is it bacteria? No. Any other guesses? It is, in fact, a satellite image of approximately 1 million people gathered on the banks of the Ganges River in 2001. That would impress Martian biologists. Goodness gracious, look at all those vertebrates, all those hominids gathered in one place. What on earth is this about? Other things that would impress the biologists is this crowd in St. Peter's Square, or this crowd in Mecca. What would impress the biologists from Mars is that these are tremendous expenditures of time, energy, money. They are incredibly robust phenomena. And the question is, what on earth is going on here? How did all this originate? This is one question the Martians would want to know. What is it for? How does it perpetuate itself? And they would be quite sure that all of these questions have good answers, whether or not we can get to those answers, because one of the lessons of biology is that nothing this robust and this expensive happens just by chance. It's not just an accident. Something, in effect, has to pay for this biologically, and we have to get to the bottom of that. Here's another thing that might really impress you or a Martian biologist. Go out in the meadow and you see an ant climbing a blade of grass. And you watch this ant to see what he's doing, and he's climbing and climbing and climbing. And you think, what's this ant doing? And he keeps climbing. If he falls, he climbs again. If he falls, he climbs again. This is Sisyphus rolling his rock. What is going on here? He climbs until he gets to the very top of the blade of grass. You think, well, what benefit accrues to the ant here? What's this all for? Is he hunting for food? Is he lost? Is he showing off to potential mates? What benefit accrues to the ant from all of this activity?